Live from the House of LeMay Makeup and Dressing Room.
Here comes Amber. Stop what you're doing. Here comes Amber. She's just doing what she can. Here comes Amber. Cue the spotlight. Here comes Amber with 2 drinks in her hand. The matriarch of fashion, sequins to her glasses, you can't look away. Ask her, does she do it? There's really nothing to it. She's got that feminine yay. If you have a party, or if you're feeling naughty, call up the House of LeMay. Here comes your favorite gal. Here comes your queen. Here comes your talk of the town. And we're live tonight. The music starts playing. It's time for cabaret on Amber Live tonight.
Ladies and gentlemen, please turn off all cell phones and get ready for your host, Amber LeMay.
They're using the trans community to bash all of us. The status quo are afraid that they're losing some form of power. Here's the interesting aspect about this backlash. It's basically against trans community, drag and trans, I should say. They used to villainize the gay and lesbian community. They can't do that anymore. We've become so visual. We're visible. They don't know or haven't seen the trans community and are uneducated on that issue. So it's easy to bash. So we have to support our trans brothers and sisters. It is a lot of people are afraid to use the word. It's a backlash. And they should use that word. You can only understand what's happening now if you know your history. And it's not the first backlash against our community. And when does it happen? It always happens when we're having success. Why does it happen? Same reason it happens against the Black community, Latino community, or women. Because the status quo are afraid that they're losing some form of power.
A Delta Airbus with 336 passengers took off from Atlanta heading to Spain, but had to land after just 2 hours because...
Negative. It's just a biohazard issue. We've had a passenger who had diarrhea all the way through the airplane, so they want us to come back to Atlanta.
One passenger stated it was pretty bad. The vanilla-scented disinfectant used only made it smell like vanilla shit. Upon returning to Atlanta, the passengers had to wait for another plane to continue their flight to Barcelona. Welcome to Amber Live. But first, I want you to really please, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. We love you subscribers. All right, now, what do gay porn and musical theater have in common? Wow, that'll get your imagination working, won't it? Well, tonight, they're both a part of this week's News Briefs. The Anti-Drag Queen Story Hour, folks, insists that the appearance of drag queens in public places, such as libraries, is a bad influence on their children, and many of the books that the queens are reading have been banned. What if a supposedly straight cis male read aloud a story describing homosexual anal intercourse? Not only in a public setting, but on C-SPAN. And the supposedly straight cis male was a United States senator. Let's watch.
I put some lube on and got him on his knees, and I began to slide into him from behind. I pulled out of him and kissed him while he masturbated. He asked me to turn over while he slipped a condom on himself. This was my ass, and I was struggling to imagine someone inside me. He got on top and slowly inserted himself into me. It was the worst pain I think I have ever felt in my life. Eventually, I felt a mix of pleasure with the pain.
This was read during a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing entitled Book Bans, Examining How Censorship Limits Liberty and Literature. I'm not sure if Senator Kennedy's testimony was in the pro or con column, but if you notice, we never did see what his left hand was doing while he was reading. Just saying. Now, no one loves musical theater more than I do. Whether it be on Broadway, a touring company, or the local community group, I'm there. The only thing I don't like about seeing a show in person is other people in the audience. This week, a touring company's performance of the musical Beetlejuice was interrupted by someone not only taking flash pictures, but singing along, talking, and, believe it or not, vaping. What do you do? Well, this is a report from Channel 7 in Denver. Yes, that was Colorado's Congress critter, Lauren Boebert. Sitting behind her was a pregnant woman who asked Boebert to please stop vaping. Her response was no, and then told the mom-to-be that she was a sad and miserable person. Not very pro-life of her, is it? Of course, Boebert used the "don't you know who I am" cliche. They didn't care. She's also denied vaping until pictures showed up proving otherwise. Since then, she issued this statement. The past few days have been difficult and humbling, and I'm truly sorry. While none of my actions or words as a private citizen that night were intended to be malicious or meant to cause harm, the reality is they did, and I regret that. Number one, you can't say, "Don't you know who I am?" and claim your actions were of a private citizen. And number two, yes, you did cause harm to others. Those tickets easily went for well over $200 a piece, and you ruined 2,800 people's perhaps once-in-a-lifetime experience. What a sad excuse for not only an elected official, but a human being as well. And that's this week's News Briefs. Russell, come on in.
Hey, Amber, I should be vaping or,
Why not? It's okay in this day and age. Just do what you want.
Yeah.
Especially if you're an entitled Republican, I guess.
Yeah, and they wonder why people don't behave when you've got our leaders behaving like that in front of the world. I mean,
it's terrible. It's so sad, so sad. Like I said, those seats, I said over 200. I bet you they were closer to $300 or $400 because they were in the orchestra session of a beautiful Buell Theater there in Denver. So, oh my God, I would have been so upset because that just ruins it for everybody. They're trying to focus on stage, but there's this disruption.
Of course, it's horrible when you've got people like that in the theater. And I think sometime you should talk to Mark about what he once did in the theater when he was rather toasty.
I'm sure he was on his best behavior. So Russell, I know we have a lot of new people watching tonight. So tell them the best way to watch Amber Live.
Well, the best way to watch Amber Live is on YouTube, and we love being on YouTube. YouTube has not only full HD for you to watch, but it's got a great chat room, and a lot of friends go in there and they chat, they talk about the show, they say hi to each other, and you and your friends can come join us. You can join Amber there, you can join myself there, and we have a great time. And don't forget, after the show, you can go to our TikTok, our Instagram, our Facebook, and even our website, amberlive.tv, to find lots more Amber. And if you can't watch Amber, you can always just listen to her on the Amber Live interviews. So if you're driving to work and you want to listen to one of the great interviews that Amber does, I break them out of the show. We have the individual guests on giving their interview with Amber, and it's a great way to catch up on what's been going on because Amber's everywhere.
everywhere. And we've had some great interviews. If you missed last week's, that was an amazing with Mark Siegel, a gay pioneer who was at Stonewall, tells his story about being a journalist. Oh my gosh. That was a fascinating interview, even if I do say so myself. So go back on YouTube or one of the podcasts and catch it if you didn't last week.
Yeah, Mark really was fantastic. He was the things he's done are just amazing. And to hear the stories firsthand from him is just a wonderful opportunity for everybody.
Yes. So, Russell, How can people support Amber Live?
There's a great way to support Amber Live, and that's by becoming a bustier. And we love all our bustiers and want to say thank you to everyone who has donated. But as you know, there are bills every month, so it would be a huge help if we got some new bustiers. Use that Venmo at RJD Pro, or you can go to our website that I mentioned before, amberlive.tv, and just look for the Support Amber Live section. And you can use your credit card to donate there if you don't have a Venmo account. Any amount is welcome. All of our bustiers, many of them are repeat bustiers over the years, and they've all helped keep us streaming live, streaming all the time, every week. So, and bringing great guests to you.
Yeah, this is like our 166th show, I think. Yeah. And, our super bustier, Larry, that they're at the top of the list. We mentioned last week that Larry passed away, and our hearts are still very sad because of that. But you know what? If you like Larry, or if you want to support Larry, he'd love it if you gave us some bucks. I know he would.
He did. Not only was he a bustier, but he had some great stuff from our store that when he was very proud of. He loved having our mug. He loved having our pillow. Larry was very proud of Amber Live, the work we were doing, and he liked to be a part of it and help out.
Yes, he's very, very much missed. All right, Russell, who are our guests this week?
Oh, my goodness. We have two great guests this week. One of them's a repeat offender, but we'll get to him. First up, we're going to have Jake Kleinmahon, who is a doctor from New Orleans, and he has quite the story and has made national news. People Magazine, CNN, I think NBC and CBS have covered him because of what he's done, because of the gay rights issues in the South. He was very upset by it and was worried about his family. And then after Dr. Kleinmahon, we have our dear friend Duane Scott Cerny back. He is the author of two great books. If you haven't read them, we recommend you get them. But he's here not to talk about his books tonight, but to talk about an exhibit that he saw of an amazing artist, J.C. Leyendecker, who has done, back in the early 1900s, did a lot of amazing work that you've probably seen and just don't know who he is. So that's
fascinating interview. It was a great exhibit, and Duane Scott Cerny was in his element, both there at the exhibit and talking to me about it. So I can't wait. Let's start that first interview right now. As we've covered many times before, several states have recently passed anti-LGBTQ plus laws. From the Don't Say Gay laws to those limiting or canceling gender-affirming care, state legislatures are saying, we don't care about you. So what can we do? Well, Dr. Jake Kleinmahon works as the medical director of the Ochsner Pediatric Heart Transplant, Heart Failure, and Ventricular Assist Device programs in New Orleans. He is just one of 3 doctors in Louisiana with that specialization. And he's doing something. He's moving out of the state along with his husband and 2 adorable children. Let's find out more from Dr. Kleinmahon. Jake, come on in.
Thanks, Amber. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. We've talked a lot about these laws, but we haven't talked to many people who they really affect. So before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, etc.
It's great. So I grew up in Westchester, New York. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. And I went on to college at Colgate University, where I studied Spanish literature. I actually knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was 4 years old. I'm just stubborn and stuck with it. And then I went down to Tulane for medical school. I did my medical school training there, and then I stayed for my residency in pediatrics. After that, I went to Children's Colorado and did training in heart failure and heart transplant, as well as general pediatric cardiology. And then in 2018, straight out of fellowship, I came back to Ochsner to be the medical director of the Pediatric Heart Transplant, Heart Failure, and Ventricular Assist Devices programs.
Wow. So how did Spanish literature prepare you for med school?
That's a great question. So everybody who goes to med school, they have to take pre-med courses. It's a standard set of courses. And I figured I was going to have to take those courses anyway. So why not also develop a skill that I could use in my practice? So I frequently use Spanish with my patient population, and it just allows for the ease of patient care when I can speak to them in their native language.
What drew you to Tulane?
I had this crazy idea. So I started medical school in 2007. That's 2 years after Hurricane Katrina. And this is when the healthcare system in New Orleans was really in its rebuilding phase. And I had this crazy idea that I wanted to go down there and help rebuild the health system.
Well, how altruistic of you. Very nice. All right. Recently, the laws in Louisiana have changed. Tell us about what's changing and what you did about it.
So there were 3 laws that were put forth this legislative session. There was a Don't Say Gay bill that was passed and then vetoed. There was a Give a Name bill that's targeting transgender youth in schools. And then that was also vetoed. And then there was a gender affirming care bill that passed that was vetoed, and then they had a special override session that of the 3 bills, it was the only one that actually went through. So that's kind of where we are right now. Looking down the road, unfortunately, it looks like we're going to have more of these policies and more of these laws brought up again. And very likely the next governor of Louisiana is going to be a very right-wing Republican that supports these really dangerous laws for kids.
Tell me about your activism while these laws were being discussed.
So we did as much as we could. You know, we did the simple things like voting in every election. But then we also, I wrote to the legislature directly. I called our local legislatures. I wrote a letter to the Senate Education Committee that was hearing the Don't Say Gay bill. And I also discussed the impact of these laws with my company, which is the biggest employer in Louisiana, as well as my husband's company as well.
And you had a discussion after these were passed with your husband about what to do. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this all stemmed from really when we were watching the debate in the Senate Education Committee about the Don't Say Gay bill. And people were lining up against this bill. And the Republican legislature, they just walked out. They didn't care what people had to say. They didn't care that they spoke for almost 2 hours against this bill. And these were people that were pastors, teachers, students, librarians from all walks of life that were against these bills. And after that, it really made it clear that Louisiana is not a state where we want to raise our children.
Where do you want to go?
So I'm originally from New York, and my parents have been willing me back to New York ever since I left after college. So we traveled back to New York, and currently, actually this past week, moved into our new house in Long Island.
I mentioned that you were one of 3 doctors in the state with your specialty. What's happening to your patients?
So fortunately, Ochsner has 2 other very competent and special pediatric heart transplant, heart failure, and ventricular assist device providers that are really working overtime in order to take care of all these patients. And what's happening is that the patients that were just routine before that could get an appointment right away, they're going to have a wait time now. And, you know, I like to think that everybody is still going to be able to receive the same quality of care. But I'm also one of 2 pediatric pulmonary hypertension specialists that was in the state. So now there's only one at the Children's Hospital down the street from Ochsner. And it's a real problem.
Are you aware of others who are moving out of Louisiana for the same reason?
Certainly, the OBs have been moving out. Since this story went public, which we really never anticipated it to go public, but here we are, and we're trying to make the best of it. I've had hundreds of people reach out to me saying that either one, they support me 100%, or two, they're in a similar situation and thinking about moving, or it seems like the entire portion of Canada came from the United States as well.
You talked about the OBs, the obstetricians moving out or wanting to move out. That has something to do with the anti-abortion laws that have been passed in your state. So are medical students being taught those techniques or those procedures with this law in place?
This is all very much in flux right now, and OBs who are trained to do these procedures and are qualified and are doing these procedures on fetuses that would be high risk or not survive to term. They're really scared about performing these procedures because they don't want to lose their medical license and they don't want to end up in jail, God forbid. So I'm not as intimately involved in the OB training, but I would think that there are going to be fewer and fewer providers that are competent in doing these procedures, and also probably not going to want to be as willing to teach other providers because they want to make sure that they have full control over every procedure that they do.
It's very frightening because that means medical students are not going to want to go to any medical schools in those states, and those that do are going to be totally ignorant on how to do those procedures, and it's very frightening.
And the other part is there are actually hospitals that have had to close because they don't have OBs anymore. They can't deliver babies.
It's very, very slippery slope they're going down, and they don't realize it. But people like you are making a stand and letting them know. All right, we talked about your children earlier, so let's see some pictures. All right, tell us about that. Who's that handsome man with you, and who are your kids?
That's my husband, Tom. We've been together for over 10 years and got married in 2015, right after the Supreme Court legalized gay marriage. And then I'm holding our 4-year-old son, Connor, and Tom has Isabel, who's about to turn 7 in 2 weeks.
What fun ages. Yeah.
Yes, this picture is actually my last day at work, and this is the day that they left New Orleans to start to travel to New York. We went to our first Mets game together. The kids had a blast. I'm not sure if they actually watched any part of the game.
It's the Mets.
Yeah, exactly. I grew up a Mets fan, but I'm certainly going to indoctrinate them into being a Mets fan and learning how to lose.
Oh, you dress alike too. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so this is our holiday picture. And then this was us right before the New Orleans Gay Pride Parade this year, where we marched with my husband's company, Shell, and celebrated Pride and all the meaning behind it.
Oh.
And the Saints. We absolutely love the Saints. We're certainly of the things that I'm going to miss from Louisiana, the Saints is one of them. But I've also grew up a Jets fan, and who knows, the Jets have some real potential this year with Aaron Rodgers. And this is at the New Orleans Sculpture Garden. And what I like about this picture is that it's a family, it's our family, in a sculpture behind them that says love. And I think that's what family is. And I think that's what's been missing out of our community over these past couple of years is people forget what love is. They may realize what it is for their husband, wife, or their children, but we also need to love our neighbors and our community and people that we don't know.
When you made the decision to move from New Orleans, you made headlines. You were everywhere, all over the news. What was the reaction from the public, and any feedback or blowback from it?
The vast majority of the feedback, I was surprised, was just absolutely supportive and really understood why we were moving. And then there was less than 1% that said things like, oh, he's just moving to get a better job, or if he really cared about the kids in Louisiana, he would have stayed there. And none of these are true. We moved because we felt like we were forced to leave Louisiana. The hardest part of the decision was actually leaving my patients and their families, because I pride myself in developing strong bonds with my patients and their families. And it was really hard to tell them that I was going to leave. Fortunately, there are people in Long Island that I can serve as well, or unfortunately. So it's just a different set of patients that will be receiving my care. But it was heartbreaking, and it still is. Just it certainly still have moments of sadness, and the memories that we created. And my kids were basically grew up their whole lives in New Orleans. It's what they know. So we're adjusting to New York, but in the long term, this is the best thing for our family.
Wow. Now, I saw your email address was Dr. Daddy Shark. Tell us about that.
Yes, my Instagram handle, Heart Dr. Daddy Shark. Yes. So I'm a heart doctor, and the shark part comes from actually during our rehearsal dinner from our wedding. It was a costume dinner, and I was dressed like Left Shark from Katy Perry's Super Bowl. And then my kids called me either Daddy or Daddy-O. So putting those all together, it became Heart Dr. Daddy Shark.
Well, Jake, thank you so much for talking about us. What a story you have. I admire your stance that you took and the strength that it took to do it. And you have a lovely family, and it's just very nice to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Amber. And like I said, we're going to try to do the most good from this as possible, and help educate the public of what these laws really mean for families like ours.
Let's do it together. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Doctor. Wow. Someone who believes strongly in something and did something about it. Good for you, Doctor. You're an inspiration. And now it's time for this week's Altar-cations. Altar-cations is our way of changing the narrative in the conversation on who is grooming and molesting children. The far right would like you to believe it's the drag queens and members of the trans communities committing these offenses. But the facts point that the high percentage of offenders are ministers, priests, and others associated with religious education. Now, why do so many people of religion like child pornography? Florida man Sean Fitzgerald was director of youth services at a First United Methodist Church and a high school teacher. And he was arrested after investigators found more than 700 pictures and videos of child porn on his phone. The images on his phone were of children as young as infants being sexually abused. He's been sentenced to 35 years in prison. Good luck surviving 6 months, Pastor. Tyler Selby, a worship leader at a Baptist church in Mississippi, was arrested on federal charges of producing child pornography. He is accused of producing a video that shows him in a tub with a young boy committing sexual acts. Online, Selby, a married family man, posed as a 17-year-old girl named Emma Long. To obtain child sexual abuse materials, he shared a video of Emma's 5-year-old sister engaging in sexual activity to entice others to sexually abuse children and share their videos. Worship leader indeed. And Rodolfo Martinez Guerva, a priest with the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, has been charged with possession of child pornography. Allegedly, he possessed more than 600 images of child sexual abuse material, including pictures of videos of minors under 12, unsurprisingly, mostly of boys. The district attorney said, as a priest, the defendant is in a position of tremendous power, authority, and trust. The alleged crimes deeply violate the trust and involve a disturbing number of sexual images of young boys. These are not simply images and videos. They constitute horrific exploitation of our most vulnerable. End quote. And while it may look like they're wearing dresses, please don't confuse them with drag queens. And that's this week's Altar-cations. It's been a while since Duane Scott Cerny has been on the show, but he's back, and he's back with something great. Come on in, Duane.
What's in your attic?
Duane Scott Cerny, you've been up in my attic all summer. I haven't seen you.
No air conditioning.
No, it's been hot up there. I bet.
You're a terrible landlord.
Yeah.
But it freed me up though to go on vacation, go to New York and see an exhibit that I had. It was on my bucket list, and I had to do it if I did nothing else. And that was
tell me about it.
It was the J.C. Leyendecker exhibit, who was an American illustrator from 1895 to 1951. Are you familiar?
I heard we were going to talk about him, so I did look, and I recognized the style.
Right? Yeah, it just kind of jumps out. So many things that I think are fascinating about this is that, he's certainly someone who was born and educated and as far as his art is an Art Nouveau style, but he's someone who brought out the Art Deco, because when you see his illustrations, they're much more modern. And he really brought out the modern man as being an illustrator. It's so actually this is his house. Now this was taken in June of 1919. He was featured in Country Life. So this is this 19-room mansion that he built for himself. I mean, he was the most successful illustrator of his time, and excuse me. Norman Rockwell, I disappeared. Norman Rockwell practically stalked this guy. And if we look at now and see Norman Rockwell is just like this big star, and Leyendecker is, you kind of have to know about him, but he's the preeminent LGBTQ artist really of our time. So many things go back to this. I mean, there wouldn't have been a Warhol. So many things go back to Leyendecker. So famous for his illustrations. Now, he did 322 covers for the Saturday Evening Post alone. 322 covers. That's like unbelievable.
That's like 6 years worth, isn't it?
And and Collier's magazine, he did 80 covers. And at the height of his, this is what he was known for showing. See, when I talk about Art Deco, I mean, yes. Look at that guy. Now, this was probably Charles Beach, who was his partner, the gentleman in the swimsuit. And when he met him in 1903, everything changed. The two of them kind of got this idea, which was revolutionary at the time, was to present the masculinity of men and men together. men together. So you could say, there's a kind of a homoeroticism, to it. But really back then there wasn't the words for that. It was just what are they implying? I was always very handsome gentleman, very collegiate, right? Kind of Harvard and Yale. Leyendecker was most famous for making the arrow shirt man. And we'll have more of those as they come up. But you can see he wasn't afraid to show a little box, let's be honest. And when you're talking about things from the teens or the 20s, that's unheard of, to see that much male flesh. So he had a fan base already. They had definitely gotten into something that people hadn't seen before. And it was that when I was reading about him, and someone called it, which I love, it was kind of the Trojan horse of design, of illustrations, because he was able to slip these things in. And on one hand, you're looking at he had some men in tailored suits, and Kuppenheimer was one of the suit maker. That was somebody who was paying for these ads. Again, very Jazz Age, Great Gatsby, here in their tuxedos. But it's showing an intimacy with men that you just didn't see. He did paint and draw women, but not nearly as well. And this was his way, when I say go back to the Trojan horse, is to kind of slip this in, get this past, I'm going to say necessarily the censors, but so that he could paint and draw as he wanted and still make an unbelievable living. And when he was 34, he was booked 12 months in advance, and he was paid $350 per cover, right? That's $11,000 in today's money. He was extremely successful. But when he hooked up with Charles Beach, which is his model and rather his muse, and then that gentleman took care of all his business dealings. So Leyendecker just had the time just to paint. So if there were things to deliver. So here's an example that was in the exhibit. So these are arrow collars. Absolutely, this was from some antique store. So you can see the samples of arrow collars that were available, because he was really the arrow collar man, is what they even refer to him, as. Now he really liked his sailors.
What did he do with that? Was that a part of an ad campaign? Was that a cover?
He did a lot of things. He did a lot of things for the government and recruiting. So think about how far back this goes. This is like World War I. But he did do a lot of sailors and soldiers that then would be in magazines, as far as being recruiting or for fundraising, for the war. His pieces just. It was good. So this exhibit I saw was at the New York Historical Society, and I saw it on the last weekend. And many of these things had never been seen or were donated by people, lent, I should say, for this. And there's really a 3D quality to these. Another famous one, definitely, this is Charles Beach, his partner. And how he could work. And it's Easter, and we still have. we're looking at a young man who's not going to be laying any eggs. This is kind of interesting, which they did in the museum. They made just a piece of glass that you could stand on either side of, so a little hard to see. But it separated the main museum from this small exhibit. There's my friend Jimmy. Again, standing next to a painting which is very Art Deco, very, very Art Deco. And here we are with this gentleman again. Now, he also did illustrations for objects, which I did not know. So these are football games. A lot of times these are kind of card games inside. But just, the masculinity. I mean, here's a guy. He's putting a butt right in your face. If you're looking at it, if you're not looking at it, you kind of don't see it, and that's why it's a Trojan horse. This was odd in the exhibit. I can't really explain that, but it did catch my eye as something very, very different. Something that he was, obviously just playing with as far as an illustration. I don't think that was used anywhere. But he actually, he studied at the Art Institute here in Chicago. And then he went to Paris. This was as a young man, and then came back to New York. He had a studio in Gramercy Park. And he's someone who is just, I kind of feel, I mean, lots of people know about him now, and he's got an Instagram page. Anybody was like Google Leyendecker, you could see the extent of his work. But he really doesn't get the credit for what he did. This guy was a pioneer. Now, was he closeted? Absolutely. But we're talking the turn of the century. Now, this is his most famous piece. So this was on loan from Whoopi Goldberg. And he did a number of illustrations for Ivory Soap. It Floats. I also did some research about, hang on this for a second, about Ivory Soap in general. And they were very edgy. They would try things. They were just out there. Ivory Soap had a line of ads that just had cats, like black cats and white cats. Like your black cat would be cleaner with Ivory Soap. I don't know, but they were willing to take a chance on things. So that particular one is where there's the hidden erection, and that's what made this so scandalous. And there it is.
Oh.
Between, and it right now, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I didn't see it at first. Everybody I show it to ephemera people, dealers, and they go, I don't see it. But to think that was a national ad, and that's not a Sears Roebuck accidentally. There's a remember that, the little blotto of ink, and there's an extra testicle. No. That was intentional. And what I think he did is he made being different acceptable. Now, yes, it was showing people of great wealth, but in his personal life and with his partner, they reached out to people of color. He did illustrations of people of color. Unfortunately, they tended to be, if it was a black man, he's the chauffeur. It was secondary, but he pushed for that. Still in a very private life. He passed a few years before his partner, and at the end, even though they had all this great wealth, and they really lived it up. They had a good time. They had parties, but at the end, they were actually selling some of these illustrations at a yard sale. And in 2020, Sotheby's sold one of his paintings for $500,000, which is still really undervalued, because you think about somebody like Norman Rockwell, who, again, 20 years younger, but would follow him to New Rochelle. And he knew how great Leyendecker was. But the type of money that Norman Rockwell would get for his things, even while he was alive, it's kind of mixed feelings, but there really wouldn't have been a Norman Rockwell as we know it if there hadn't been a Leyendecker.
So realism. Some of those pictures, I'd love to write captions for.
I'm sure you would.
All right. So you went to the exhibit. Was it everything you hoped it would be?
And more. I'm one of these people that I'll start. I was there when it opened, and there was a small line, and there was a lot of older gay gentlemen, and we all started chatting. this and that. Oh, you got to see this piece of it, because there wasn't a docent for it, and I got just as much information out of that. And also, there was a lovely man in the gift shop who told me something which I thought was fascinating: is that the staff there at the Historical Society had been pushing for this exhibit for a decade, and the board, I'm not going to really say why, just didn't see it. And they're going, this man was so influential, an absolute New Yorker. How can you dodge that, right? And it kind of that being, he's still controversial. The fact that a museum was, and it was one of their best attended. It was a small exhibit. It's still one of their best attended exhibits. So it's almost that museums have to be taught what people want to see, right? And I think it's because this is a thing. It wouldn't be shown anywhere else than in New York, because it just took that much. Because he was an illustrator, there's not a great body of work as far as paintings that are available, to be lent to a kind of a major exhibit.
Well, it's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with us, Duane Scott. Looking forward to you coming back again on the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Always fun.
What's in your attic?
Thank you, Duane. You can come up to my attic anytime. All right, Russell, come on in.
Hey, oh my goodness, that art is just incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And the story behind it, Duane's a great historian. It's really valuable, what he shares with us. So again, thank you very much, Duane. So Russell, what else do we have coming up on the show?
We have a lot more coming up, even more than usual. You won't believe the things that are left. We have a whole section on what Amber's been up to, and she's been up to quite a bit. This is a busy couple of months for you. So we've got her out there on the street working it. And we've got pictures and videos to show. And then after that, we're going to have Rocco, and we've got your wrap up and Boog and Shoog, and just, you never know who else might pop in.
That's right. One more plug.
Oh, well, you know what I love? It's the Boostiers, the people who keep us going. And there they are again. Don't forget, it would be very helpful for anyone out there to become a Boostier. Use that Venmo at RJDPro, or go right to amberlive.tv and look for the support Amber Live button if you'd like to use your credit card to help us out. So thank you to all our Boostiers. And the other thing you can do, and we mentioned it earlier, don't forget that Amber Live store. There's mugs, there's hats, there's Rusty Peen products. There's a little bit of everything there, and we're putting up new stuff as fast as we can get it made. So there's a lot for you and a lot of ways that you can show off your love for Amber Live.
I'd love it if you loved me. What can I say? All right, let's get on. Yes, I have been busy the past week or so. Last Sunday, I was a judge for the Vermont Pride Parade. Yes, they asked me to judge something, and we have some pictures of that. All right, Russell, if you show them. Oh, that's a Pride picture from 1998. Yes, that's my dear sister and friend Marguerite there. We were sitting backstage, and that year, our fundraising efforts went for LeMay's latrines, always for a good cause. Now, coming up to this year, right before the parade, I got to put my arms around that's Lieutenant Governor David Zuckerman of the great state of Vermont and Burlington's Chief of Police, John Murad. And they were happy to see me, and I'm always happy to see them. Thanks, guys. A big group from the St. Michael's College was there, all their athletic teams. And one of them came up and said, "We had our picture taken with you last year. Can we again?" And I said, "Yes, you can." So I just sat on that guy's lap. What a great time. And here's another picture from the St. Mike's. It was just this was the pre-place where they gathered before the parade. So I went down to do some talking. You notice I have my umbrella there. There was a chance of rain, so I was prepared. And next picture, and there's another group from St. Mike's. It was just so nice to be appreciated by these young kids, and they appreciated me as well. All right, and that's looking down before the parade started. The rest of them are in the parking lot off to the right, but you can see there's a long gathering of people there waiting to get started. And then some more people getting ready. There's St. Mike's again, and a lot of signs and flags. It was a glorious time, glorious time. And there I am. I was stationed in front of the Flynn Theater as one of the judges, and yes, and they put on the marquee there, Happy Pride, and yes, I was happy. And there I am with the other judges, and they're commenting on the parade. And let's watch a video of the parade right now. Hi there, I'm Amber LeMay, and I'm so happy to be here at the 40th Annual Pride Parade. I've been to, I think, maybe 34, 35 of them, and so just to see how it's grown over the years. For several years, I was an organizer of the Pride Parade, and so that was very nice. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. You can catch me on amberlive.tv. I have a live stream show every Sunday, so check that out on my YouTube channel as well. But, 40 years ago, there was a parade in Burlington. I think it probably lasted maybe 5 or 6 minutes, but that wasn't the case all the rest of the country. Burlington was one of the first smaller cities or towns to have a pride parade after New York and Chicago and all the larger cities. Yes.
Once again, I am Grim Noir.
I'm Virginia Thick 100.
And I'm Amber LeMay. Check me out at amberlive.tv for all of the things I do. Thank you.
And this was the Burlington Pride Parade, year 40.
Yes, that was a live broadcast on our local station of Community Access. Yeah, it was live, and you can see that on their website. It was a great day. And then afterwards, there I am on the stage announcing the winners of the awards. Yeah, so I got to be on stage. There I am at the festival with Mike Wilson. He's been on the show before. He's the organizer of Winter Rendezvous. It was great seeing him. There's Taylor Small. Taylor's been on the show as well. Taylor Small was the first transgendered state representative for the state of Vermont, and she's gotten international fame for what she's done, and she was one of the organizers of the day. Thank you so much, Taylor Small. And afterwards at Red Square, there was a Burly Bear party, and there was pizza, and our friend Mark, he just loves his pizza, so he had to have some. But it was a great day. The parade lasted like 50 minutes. It was a rather long parade. You saw some of the great activities that were in it as well. So that was Sunday. And then on Thursday night, I was hostess for a wait-a-thon event at Waterworks Restaurant, and it was a benefit for the Ronald McDonald House Charities, which is a great organization. They have a beautiful house here in Burlington where they house families whose children are in the hospital, so they don't have to stay in a hotel and have that impersonal hotel experience. They have a home where they have fresh homemade food and a safe place to stay. So we really like supporting them. So here's some pictures from that event on Thursday night. There I am at my hostess station with another former guest of Amber Live, Serena Magden. She was there. We love Serena. She's going to be in the production of The Prom that's coming up at that Flynn Theater that we saw earlier, along with our good friend Bob Bolliard. And there I am, just waiting to greet people as they come in. As you can see, I have my Amber hostess outfit on. I love that outfit made by Jeff Steele. There's another former guest on Amber Live, DJ Craig Mitchell. He was bartending that night. He's a great man and does great things for our community. Thank you so much, Craig Mitchell. And there's our good friend Nancy, who's been a bustier in the past. She stopped by to say hi, so it was nice seeing Nancy. And you can see that's the Winooski River in the back there. And just a few weeks ago, it was rumbling through with the heavy rainfall that we had in Vermont. But tonight, it was just a nice, peaceful river flowing down the Winooski Falls there. It was nice there. And inside, this is an old mill in Winooski, and they used to make Union Army uniforms in the mill. And there's some great pictures around there of people who used to work in the mill. It's really a cool place. And there's Gary Sadowski. Gary Sadowski is the head meteorologist at channel WCAX Channel 3 here in Burlington. He was there doing a live remote, so I had to get my picture with Gary. And there I am with Lisa Nagel. Lisa was one of the organizers of the event, a good friend of mine, a great woman, and she asked me to do it, and I said, sure. This was, I think, the fourth time that the House of LeMay has been involved in the wait-a-thon for Ronald McDonald Charities. And like I said, it's a good cause, and we're happy to help. So that's what I did this week. Now, tonight, while you're watching this show, I'm at the Flynn Theater again. I'm a judge for Dancing with the Burlington Stars. It's a benefit for the Vermont Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired. This is my third year of doing that. The Flint Theater is a beautiful 1,400-seat Art Deco theater, and I'm going to be sitting up front watching a lot of good dancing, and I get to judge again. So it's just great. I just really appreciate helping out the community and getting out there. And I like making people smile and laugh as well. So that's what I've been up to. Whew, that's a lot. And I've got some other things coming up this fall, including a blood drive. I'm hosting one of those, and we'll tell you more about that next week. All right, and you know what's coming up next week? Next week is another one of our great interviews. It's with Charles Bush. You may remember Charles. We interviewed him last year. Fascinating man, an American icon. He calls himself a male actress. The movies, the plays, the things that he's done. We have a full hour with Charles Bush next week. But right now, it's time for Rocco. Rocco, come on in.
Hey, everybody. This is Rocco Zamboni. Can you tell where I am? Of course not, because you're not here. I'm at MetLife Stadium to see the one and only boss, Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, you tell him, lady. This is the hot chick I'm with. She thinks this is funny, but we're here to see the boss. We're not dicking around. Anyway, I'll check in with you guys later. Hey, look who's on the billboard up there. Did you recognize him? Shut up. Of course you did. What is this bullshit now? That's it. That was the show. We saw it. We went. We came. Now
it
we're
was
leaving.
Amazing.
It was. It was good. That guy's got a future. Whoever he is. What the hell's his name again?
Fuck you.
Frank Springsteen.
Bruce.
All right.
Sorry. Love that Rocco.
Thanks, Rocco. Again, next week is with Charles Bush, who has a new book coming out, Leading Lady, a memoir of a most unusual boy. He certainly is. Fascinating story, fascinating man. We'll see him next week, and we'll see you as well. Good night.
What are we going to do while Amber is in P-Town?
Well, I'm going to Poo-Town.
Gross!
No. I mean that place where they let you stuff your own Pooh Bear. Poo-Town.
That's not what it's called. I think you're confusing Disney and Build-A-Bear.
Oh, I have a Pooh Bear story about when I was at Disney.
Oh, you met Pooh Bear?
No, I took a dump on stage at the Country Bear Jamboree. There were some Pooh Bears that day.